let me share this. No, I have to share. Yes. Okay. So the goal of the next few hours is to get to the interpolation for entire functions, and but then we will start from very basics. So infinite products. Then we do Weierstrass factorization, Mitter-Leffler theorem, and then finally we get to the interpolation problem for entire functions. Okay, so first of all, infinite products in. Let me just move this. Okay. Infinite products. Infinite products in C. Definition of infinite product is just an infinite product, which is if I have a sequence Pn from 1 to infinity, say, of complex numbers, then the infinite product of this is just the limit, if it exists, of products for J from 1 to n of Pj. And we say that this limit converges if the limit belongs to P minus 0. Now, sometimes we relax. So sometimes to allow for finitely many zeros and products of holomorphic functions, or a discrete number of zeros. Sometimes we relax to these are two. There might be some factors like P and 1, P and M is equal to 0. So some of these factors may be 0. So the product, of course, is 0. And we have the product for n different to all of these guys of Pn to converge in P minus 0. Okay, and a necessary condition for convergence it is that so product for n 1 to infinity of Pn converges, implies that Pn goes to 1 and goes to infinity is 1, and the proof is the same for the series. You do product to n of Pn over product. Let's give a name to this. Let's call it P, like the product of everything from n to n minus 1 of Pn as n goes to infinity. If the product converges, that goes to P over P, which is 1. Okay. As an exercise, find the vice versa. Vice versa case. For instance, if you consider that diverges and this converges. Okay. So I guess I did the exercise myself. Now, the headache is that we deal with complex numbers. So let me introduce this notation that log of R e to the it, I put a capital L, it is the principal determination of the logarithm, which is like log of R, which is a real number, plus it for t between minus pi and pi, and let's say, so that's the principal determination of the logarithm. So it means that if my number is there, if the it, we consider then we consider this t over here as the argument for the definition of the logarithms. And it is kind of natural. Okay, products are kind of leave many of us uneasy, including myself. It's much better to deal with a logarithm of product, which is a sum. And so we have a lemma. We said that this product pi, okay, let's call pi product for n to infinity of Pn, or it's even better to write it 1 plus something which goes to 0, and let's call sigma sum for n 1 to infinity of log of 1 plus an. Then pi converges if and only if sigma converges as a theory. So for the proof, I give you the proof. Okay.
Nicola, did you mean sum of log of a con n without 1 plus?
No, 1 plus a.
Okay.
I mean, because the logarithm of the product is the sum of the logarithms.
Okay, so yeah, I see. Okay,
so that's the sum of the logarithms of Pn. So for the proof, let's say, okay, if you consider, because it is this principal determination that has to be taken into account. So if you consider 1 plus a1 times blah, 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 times 1 plus an, that's true. It is true that this is the exponential of log of 1 plus an. I mean, that's just a relation log 1 plus a1, I guess, an. So if the sum converges, so if the sum converges, converges, it implies that the exponential of the sum converges, which means that the product converges. The other direction, there is this factor with the arguments. So let me go to the details. The point is that if I consider the fact that pi n, which is the product for n1 to n of Pn. Pn is recall that Pn and 1 plus An is the same thing. Converges. Well, if this goes to pi infinity, it's not true. That does not imply that the log of pi n goes the log of pi infinity. Right, because okay, you just think of think of pi n. Think of Pn like e to the I constant times over n squared, something like that. Then the product by infinity is like e to the I a sum for n1 infinity of 1 over n squared, and the log of pi infinity, well, it's not typically. It is a times, well, I times a times sum for 1 infinity 1 over n squared. But this is n squared minus a multiple of pi, where this multiple of pi is chosen in such a way this belongs to minus pi pi. Because we said that the logarithm must, the argument, the imaginary part must be minus pi pi. So typically it's not this. Okay. So, well, but what we know for sure, okay, so this is what the problem is. What we know for sure, it is that if I consider pi n, okay, we know that pi n over pi infinity, as n goes to infinity, that goes to 1. So when I consider the logarithm of pi n over pi infinity, that goes to 0. That's true, because logarithm is a continuous function in a neighborhood of 0. And when I consider the logarithm of pi n over pi infinity. I guess it's a Greek pi. Okay. This is the logarithm of the exponential of the sum of the logarithms. So log p1 plus log pn, that was rather minus log that's true, right? Okay, and taking okay, so it means that there must be some multiple plus log by n minus log of the infinite product, and here there must be some multiple of 2 pi I with hn in some integer number. Okay. Okay. The fact is that from this relation here, we get, okay, so the log of that ratio is this one. So when we consider and that ratio goes to 0. So when I consider h, well, let's say 2 pi I times h n plus 1 minus hn, that's equal to log pi n plus 1 over pi infinity. These are things you can also do on a picture, by the way, with things that revolve around a circle. But say, from this relation, I take a difference between n capital N plus 1 of that. I get a bunch of cancellations, and what survives here is, I guess, log with the sign minus sign, log of p n plus 1. And then we let n to infinity, and that goes to 0, minus 0, minus 0. Because all of these things go to 1. Okay. Which means that hn is definitely constant. Because it's an integer. So this hn is equal to h infinity for capital N greater or equal than something. Okay. So now when we consider, remember that we wanted to show that the convergence of the product implies the convergence of the sum. So I consider the logarithm the sum of the logarithms, partial sum, logarithm p1 plus blah 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 plus logarithm of the n, and that's equal to logarithm of pi infinity by this relation here above, pi infinity, let me look again at that, plus log of pi n over pi infinity minus hn to pi I. And if I let n to infinity, well, that goes to log of pi infinity. I guess this was plus 0 minus h infinity to pi. So the limit exists. Okay. Now, in calculus 1, we learn that the convergence of this and the convergence of that are pretty much the same. Okay, first, already in calculus 1, if you do the okay, I leave it as an exercise. When I scan my notes, there is a solution to the exercise. Find a sequence sequences an, so that sum of the logarithm converges, but sum of an diverges, or this diverges, but this converges. Okay, to do the exercise, you need a series, sum of an, which does not converge absolutely, because, well, first let me give a definition. The definition, we say that product for n infinity of Pn converges absolutely if the sum of the logarithms converges absolutely in the usual sense. And then from calculus, we have the sum of log 1 plus an. Well, we say with the absolute value converges absolutely, converges if and only sum of an converges. I think I wrote the proof on my notes. Or maybe I forgot to write this. Okay, so Okay, it's you do it with the Taylor expansion, essentially. That's. Okay, so now we know what an infinite product is, and let me see what was next here. Okay, and now let's do products of homomorphic functions. Let me see. This was infinite products. So let's say products. Products. So let's start with the lemma. So the first lemma, I guess most of you know it. It is all of you know it, but I'll do it anyway. So if omega in C is open, simply connected, and the function f is a holomorphic in C and different than 0 for Z, then there exists a function G holomorphic in omega. This was a holomorphic in omega, not in C, so that f can be written as the exponential of G, so the existence of a logarithm. So for the proof, consider the function f prime over f. Essentially, we are taking, it's a derivative of the logarithm, derivative of C. This is a holomorphic function because the denominator does not vanish. And since omega is simply connected, then the function has a primitive. So there exists a function G for that holomorphic in omega, so that G prime is f prime over f. But this says that if I consider f times e to the minus g, which I want to be constant, and I take a derivative, that's f prime e to the minus g minus f e to the minus g g prime, and that's 0, right? So that's f e to the minus g times f prime over f minus g prime. 0. So it's constant. So e to the minus g is constant. And I adjust the things, and the constant is 1. Equal to 1. Yes. G, I guess. Do that. So as a corollary, and so as a corollary, I have that if I have a function which is entire, so if f is a holomorphic in C, so it's entire function. And vanishes at some point, z1, blah, 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 zn. Possibly some of these coincide, so counting multiplicities. Then f of z can be written as some power of z to the m, some power of 1 minus z over zn. So let's say these are the solutions z is equal to 0 with multiplicity. Equal n, n is equal to 1, 2. Capital N of that times e to the minus g z with g entire. So okay, so the thing is that if I have only finitely many zeros for f, then f can be written as a product times a kind of canonical product times and maybe I don't know why I took a minus. Kind of canonical product which has the same zeros as f times something which is 0 free. Okay. So what is our wish? It is that if f is a holomorphic, it's entire. And if, let me change notation. And are its zeros, possibly each of them repeated finitely many times, then f of z can be written as some power of z, some infinite product, infinite, as we saw before, of 1 minus z over an times e to the g z. Okay. Right. That's too much. Okay. This is asking too much. So let me just give an example. We already, okay, if I consider a function f of z, like distinct function or design function even. Let's call distinct function. Sine of that design function. Okay. Let me put it to pi. I go to pi. Yeah. Pi. Z. So that's equal to 0 when z is an integer. And if I consider sum let's see, product for n, which goes from 1 to infinity, of 1 minus z over n, which is what we would like to have, this does not converge at least absolutely. Because sum diverges. Okay. And now, so what we want to do now is to this is what Weierstrass did, in fact, was to make a correction to this formula, which is too much, to correct those terms so that we have absolute convergence of the product. First, let me remind you something about frequencies or tell you something. Frequencies of holomorphic functions. Okay, so this is a theorem by Weierstrass. Theorem. He says that if Fn is holomorphic in omega n, so we have a family of holomorphic functions in on open sets, and Fn tends to F as n goes to infinity, uniformly as n goes to infinity, uniformly on compact sets. Then we say the word about that. Then F is holomorphic. F is a function depending on some open set omega, holomorphic in omega. So here, what I mean is that by convergence uniformly compact sets, it means that for all compact sets, compact in omega. K is a subset of omega n from some point on, and the sequence Fn converges to F uniformly on K. So it means that these open sets might be, you know, like that. An important thing is that they can be a bit smaller, a bit larger than omega, but in the end, they must be stabilized kind of on omega. Plus, we need this uniform convergence business. How do we prove it? The theorem. I forgot. We need another. This was one of the consequences, and the other consequence that we need in the future, it is that also the uniformly, or the derivatives converge uniformly on that. Okay, that's a consequence of Cauchy formula. So let's get the proof of this Weierstrass theorem.
Sorry,
Yep.
una cosa, gli omega n come sono definiti?
Omega n sono i domini di Fn.
Ok, ma rispetto a omega,
Vuol dire che quello che si chiede è che ogni tu dici per ogni compatto in omega, aspetta, questo compatto sta in qualche omega n. Okay, I have to add maybe a condition here, and okay, because this condition says that omega is smaller kind of than the intersection of the omega n, and say that for all z belonging to omega n for infinitely many n that belongs to omega.
ok.
Okay. So basically, I would say that
I think that there should be some relation between omega n and then, of course, otherwise.
I mean, the worst thing that can happen is that omega is empty,
Okay.
you know, which is not really a problem. So let's say, right, let me see the left problem in so because the omega n are not shrinking really. They might be shrinking, but they must also be getting larger. So I'd say that maybe infinitely many is not sufficient. Definitely, I should write. Yeah. So adesso omega n is what is the lim sup lim inf omega. I'm sorry. I was not prepared to answer questions on set theory. But so you want the union. I don't remember if this is the lim-inf. You take the intersection for n greater or equal than m of omega n, and you take the union. So I want to be in union for m. Is this the lim-inf? I don't know, of the sets. So I want to be.
Yeah, that's the limit. But Nicola, so what are you trying to define here? I may be lost in this part.
Oh, David's question was because our functions Fn are defined on omega n. They're not defined on the same set.
Yes.
And I want to, and then F is a function of on omega.
Sorry, my question was just to understand what was the definition of omega n. Because
Omega n is
it was not clear from the statement that.
Yeah.
So I would say that.
I mean, omega should be
Any set.
Yes, which is for which Fn is defined after some n0, I would say.
Yeah.
So this you can see it locally. I mean, you can think of omega as a small disk which is inside all omega n after some n0.
Right. Yeah. Okay. But okay, the point is that okay, then I pick this compact set. Okay, we use Morera's theorem. So pick because the proof is on a disk, in fact. Right? So let pick a disk. So consider a disk of radius center A, radius R. Pick a disk center A, radius R, contained in omega. That's a compact set. So it's definitely in all of these sets over there. And then pick any curve, gamma, a closed curve. And the disk inside there. Then when you consider the integral of f of z dz, that's the limit of the integrals of fn of z dz, which is 0. But this is for all curves. And this implies that the function f by Morera's theorem is homomorphic in the disk. And so it's holomorphic everywhere. So that's part A. And for part B, when you consider f prime of z minus fn prime of z by Cauchy formula, that's 1 over 2 pi I integral of f of w for the first one, f prime, f of w, and for the second one, over w minus z square tw. But that's less or equal. So if you pick your point, so let's say supremum for w minus a equal to r of f of w minus fn of w, but this goes to 0, and everything else is 2 pi r over pi. Oh, I forgot here, I picked the integral over w minus a equal to r over r squared over r over 2, where provided that that is minus a is r over 2. And that goes to 0. So I have uniform convergence on half disks, and so locally uniform convergence. Okay. So I would say that maybe we take a 10 minutes break, and then we move to Hurwitz's theorem and Weierstrass factorization.
Could you go down because I have not finished to copy?
Sure. By the way, I can also.
Thank you.
Actually, I can also send you the PDF.
Okay, at the end, maybe. At the end of, maybe at the end of the lesson.
Yeah, maybe at the end. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, now I have done. You can move.